All right, all right. We are back. You're tuned in to Speak On It. The time now is 1:03 p.m. this soggy Saturday afternoon in Kalamazoo. Everybody online, hopefully you're having a good time in your cleaning and, well, spring cleaning. Hopefully it is that time of year to do so. But I want to let you know that you need to get those note-taking devices out right now because we have the one, the only Dr. Umar Johnson on the line for us. He is definitely a man of great passion. He's a certified school psychologist. He's the prince of Pan-Africanism. He's an educator. And what makes him relatable? Well, to break it down for many of us, he's a community member. He's a son, he's a father, he's an author, he's very well traveled. And my personal take, he's a man of unapologetic conviction. He's a reminder and a steward of transformation. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Umar Johnson.
Peace and love, Sister Angela. Glad to be with you. Good afternoon to the entire Michigan family. And again, thank you to all the brothers and sisters in Kalamazoo who came out to hear me speak this past Sunday. It hasn't even been a week yet,
No.
but it seems so long ago because I had such a great time. Had a great time at the event, met so many new brothers and sisters, and of course, had an even greater time after that when we went out to eat and got to meet many of the Black entrepreneurs in Kalamazoo. It appears you guys are on your way to birthing your very own Black Wall Street.
Hey, and it feels really good. Great energy, high vibration around it. The talks, the conversations, the models, everything is all for the good of building community. And we appreciate you, your contributions, and what you said then and what you're going to wrap up with on today. Just want to let everybody know, want to take a pause here, that many people didn't know this, but I heard that you were the 7th member of New Edition.
That was a joke that I made when I was in Terre Haute, Indiana yesterday speaking. Another debut, first time in Terre Haute as it was my first time in Kalamazoo before that. And of course, Lansing, Michigan, the day before I came to Kalamazoo. So that was 3 Midwest cities in a row that I've happened to visit for the very first time. So it was a great stretch. But I learned from the hostess in Terre Haute that Sister Peggy, shout out to her, that New Edition would be performing there last night, which was the day after my lecture there Thursday. Mm-hmm. And had I known, I probably would have tried to make arrangements to stay an extra evening and drive back up to Indianapolis so I could go to the New Edition concert. I'm a New Edition fan, so I always joke and say I was the 7th member of New Edition. My mother named me Jermaine by birth, so my father changed my name when I was about 7 or 8 years old to Umar, but I was Jermaine. And so I always say it was Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, Mike, Ralph, Johnny, and Jermaine. I should have been the 7th member.
All right. So for all the Germaniacs out there, holla at him, holla at him. So again, I want to thank you so much for taking time. Hopefully you are energized, had a time to at least take a nap, hopefully.
Absolutely. Had time to take a nap. The day after the event is normally the time when I can feel my body calling for some rest. I never feel it at the events. Never. Mm-hmm. I'm fully energized. And I thank God for that because you don't want to feel it at the event. But it's like my body automatically knows that I'm back home in Philadelphia and it craves for me to just take a day off for myself, which pretty much what today is because I spoke in Terre Haute Thursday. Actually, let's back up. I was in Lansing last Saturday, and then, of course, Kalamazoo this past Sunday. And then I came home for about 2-3 days, flew to Terre Haute on Wednesday, spoke there Thursday, got back home yesterday, which was Friday, and today, Saturday, is my rest day, and I'll be back at the airport Monday to fly to Jackson, Mississippi for the Free the Land, Free the Water protest at the state capitol.
Wow. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your tenacity, your resilience, your passion, really, for the work you do. Evidently, you see a charge and you were cut out. You were made for this. So thank you again on that front. You started out, Dr. Johnson, the lecture here in Kalamazoo as Our Children Are in Trouble. And let's just open with that and we'll unfold as it goes on.
Absolutely. Our children are definitely in trouble. Looking at the statistics in Michigan when I was there, both Lansing and Kalamazoo, looking at the statistics in Indianapolis and Terre Haute, looking at the statistics here in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I'll be speaking on April the 8th, and even Jackson, Mississippi. We are at a loss for Black teachers nationally. There's a Black teacher shortage. Even greater than that, our children are still being taught on a European system of curriculum. They are being criminalized by a predominantly white teacher corps. Mm-hmm. They are being adjudicated, sent from the school to the juvenile detention center by white racist male principals. We have to deal with the racism in public education. And all too often, because of white privilege, we don't really discuss the racism that is at the heart of both academic and behavioral challenges that Black children face. When we have conversations such as these, we end up spending a lot of time on poverty. We spend a lot of time on the culture of athletics and entertainment. We spend a lot of time speaking on underpaid teachers and underfunded schools, but we don't spend enough time speaking on the racism. As someone who has been in the schools for 25 years as both a school psychologist and a school principal, I can tell you racism is the biggest reason why Black children struggle. Too many people are in those classrooms who do not care about our children. And it's gotten even worse in the post-COVID era, mm-hmm. because with the economic recession in America, you see a lot of people coming over from other industries and careers into education as long-term and emergency substitute teachers. And they're there not because they care about our children, but they simply need to pay their bills. Mm-hmm. And we all know that predominantly Black school districts end up with the most uncredentialed teachers. We have an overabundance of unskilled teachers, untrained teachers. And so that just makes the situation even worse, because not only are you dealing with racist teachers who are certified and experienced, now you're dealing with individuals who are not even educators, who are simply in that classroom because they need to pay their mortgage and pay their car note. And so our children are not only being miseducated, this miseducation is being carried out by people who never were interested in teaching Black kids in the first place, and is simply doing it out of economic necessity.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. That is definitely triggering, and it should be triggering for anyone under the sound of your voice, especially want to just give you this. Talked to Mr. George White before you called in, and he lifted up the fact that among the reading scores here in Kalamazoo, it's 84% Black at the lowest, and obviously the highest, 50% being Caucasian, 67% being Latino, and that's reading deficiency. And he also lifted up that teachers are not even required to get that certification for reading and the phonemic awareness. So we're not requiring much of the teachers because of an agenda that's being kept where the concern is not necessary for those Black children. Can you speak on that?
Well, it's a shame, but I'll tell you this. There are teachers who get the certification and still can't teach it, or still choose not to teach it, because at the heart of education is a need to care about the child you're educating. That's the heart of education. I always tell people, if I have to choose between an experienced teacher who don't care mm-hmm. and an inexperienced teacher who cares, the inexperienced teacher who cares is going to do a much better job. The number one thing you need in that classroom is somebody who cares. The education is important, critically important. The experience is critically important, but you can have the education and the experience. If they do not have compassion, if they do not care about those children will not learn, because children are very intelligent and they can pick up, they can sense it, they can tell. You can walk into any school in Kalamazoo and you can ask the children which teachers in your school care mm-hmm. about whether or not you learn, and which teachers could care less about whether or not you learn. And I promise you, those children will get it right 99% of the time. They can tell you from the principal all the way down to the janitor who cares about the children in the school and who don't. They can tell, because how you feel comes out in your thoughts. It comes out in your behavior. It comes out in your emotions. It only takes about an hour for a kid to know whether or not the teacher is there because they care, and unfortunately, nobody cares about teachers who don't care. Mm-hmm. And so our children are dealing with a preponderance of children in the schools, in the classrooms, who do not care. Now, with that said, we do have to have a balanced assessment of this reading crisis in the Black community. And by the way, about half of the Black boys in America in the 4th grade cannot read on 4th grade level. And about half of the Black boys in America in the 8th grade cannot do mathematics on the 8th grade level. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, racism has a lot to do with this. White racism in particular has a lot to do with this. But you know what else has a lot to do with this? The Black community,
right,
both
at home.
The families and the community itself. We do not function under a culture of academic excellence. We give very little attention to children who achieve academic excellence. We focus more on entertainers and athletes, even in our schools, even in the schoolhouse, which is supposed to be the paragon of academic excellence. Children who are great athletes get way more attention than children who are great learners. Mm-hmm. Children who are great entertainers get way more attention than children who are great learners. The same thing in the Black community. We don't celebrate academic excellence. When is the last time you've seen a program in any Black community? I haven't even heard of one, and I'm an educator. I haven't heard of one in years, a program, and definitely not an annual program where the Black community highlights its academic achievers. I don't see that, but there's an awards banquet for the football team every season. Mm. There's an award banquet for the basketball team. There's an award banquet for the cheerleaders. There's an award banquet for the good singers and the good dancers and the good instrumentalists. What about the academic achievers? The Black community pays almost no attention to them. And we have to look at ourselves, because there's so much we can do in our community to improve reading levels, to improve math levels. As I said during my conversation in Kalamazoo, you have churches in the Black community. Why aren't they doing anything about providing our children with the tutoring programs and the reading enrichment programs that they need? Lord knows you got teachers in every congregation. I mean, the church is filled with educators. What are we doing to help our children? And it goes back to a central thesis of my narrative when it comes to the Black reality in America, and that is that we are comfortable being on the bottom. We have accepted mediocrity. Our children can feel the fact that the Black community has accepted mediocrity, and we're not going to do anything for ourselves unless we are forced to do it. If the schools don't work, we're going to wait for white folks to fix it. If the kids can't read, we're going to wait for the government to fix it. The Black community globally and nationally or locally, we're not interested in using any of our disposable income to help our children learn better. And that's a fact.
That's a shame. I do want to say that I'm proud. I do know of some Greek orgs and other community leaders. They do, and you're right, it needs to be on a regular basis, but they do support and lift up our scholars and try to bring attention to them. And we're doing that a little bit more. So I get what you're saying.
Congratulations to the exceptions.
Indeed.
Congratulations to the exceptions, and I would just challenge those exceptions to institutionalize those programs. Because when something is just a program, that's not full commitment, because programs can be discontinued overnight. When you institutionalize that program, meaning you put it within a brick and mortar structure, where you say we're committed long term to making sure this program survives, because we're going to institutionalize it, and we're going to staff it, and we're going to fund it, and we actually have a physical place where Black children can come and get the necessary academic enrichment, emotional support, counseling, and any other service that we give them. When we institutionalize it, that sends a very strong message to the community and to the society that we are serious about this. Because in Black America, we have a very bad habit of starting programs that we never institutionalize.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of programs who've been around for 5 years and 10 years and 20 years, but they rarely reach 1 century. You know, we don't see a lot of community programs that are celebrating, their centennial, because they haven't been institutionalized. In order for a program to reach its 100th anniversary, it has to be institutionalized. So for those who are doing the good things in the community, and we certainly commend them, let's start working on institutionalizing it, because one of our biggest weaknesses in the Black community, Sister Angela, across America and across the world for that matter, as someone who travels, it's a global issue for our African family, and that is we have very little infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
We do not have infrastructure. And then when you look at the infrastructure we do have, if you were to subtract from the infrastructure that is financed by the white power structure, i.e. white capitalism or white government, it gets even smaller. So we have to ask ourselves, what do we own? What do we control, upon which we do not depend on a white dollar to exist?
Absolutely. And on that note, Dr. Umar, we're going to go away and pay some bills, but we'll be back on the other side of the break with more conversation on the fate of our students in KPS system and then across the board. Keep it locked right here to 955 and 1660, The Touch. All right, we're back. You're listening to Speak On It on 955 and 1660, The Touch. I am your host, AA. We are in conversation with Dr. Umar Johnson, talking about our children in our public school systems and how they are under attack. We know that there are problems. We're going to talk what we can do. We're going to talk that the piece of college not being for everyone and some more solution-based information that Dr. Umar is going to give. And just to let you know, Dr. Umar, I did receive a couple questions while we're on commercial break, and I will sprinkle those in. One of them being, I'm a single parent. I work part-time. I'll get in trouble if I take too much time off of school when there's concerns with my child and that type of thing.
Well, number one, for my parents, respectfully, I would wonder why they were not at last Sunday's program, because they really needed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I will be coming back to Kalamazoo. Shout out to Brother Will and all the brothers and sisters who put that event on. Very well organized, very professional.
Yes.
But I want to say this. You cannot let the school bully you. If you allow the school to bully you, they will do so. So it's important that parents understand their rights. If you're constantly being forced to take off from work, you need to let the school know that you can only meet before work or after work. Schools are under an edict to make sure that they accommodate parents. It's not about the parents always accommodating the school. It's about the school accommodating the parents. If they need to meet with you about your child, let them know when you are available. Let them know you're available before school or after school. Let them know the days that you are available. And if you feel like you are being targeted, you understand, if you feel like you are being racially profiled as a single Black mother, put that on paper, because racial discrimination in publicly funded programs, including public and charter schools, is illegal. And I would strongly encourage our parents in Western Michigan and throughout the state of Michigan, please communicate on paper and via email. Phone calls are not getting you guys anywhere, because you cannot prove what transpired during a phone call. Mm-hmm. Principal can say anything and never have to keep his word. Teacher can say anything and she never has to keep her word. You can say certain things that get misconstrued and taken out of context. Even if you have a telephone conversation about your child with the teacher, principal, dean, or anyone else, please get their email address and follow it up with an email. And your email should basically say, based on the telephone conversation we had this morning at 12 o'clock about my son, we agreed to X, Y, and Z. This is my understanding based on our conversation. If this is in any way inaccurate, can you please clarify? The only way you can hold them accountable for what they say and do is if you have a paper trail that proves what was said and what was agreed upon. And Black parents are often ending up on the wrong side of things because we are too comfortable with telephone conversations and too lazy to follow up with letters and email messages.
Wow. And with that being said, Dr. Umar, they also should have been there to get your book. It kind of referred to the Bible, for parents who are dealing with issues with their children in school. Black Parent, The Art of War for Dealing with America's Public and Charter Schools. Again, it's the Black Parent Advocate, The Art of War for Dealing with America's Public and Charter Schools. And I love how you spelled that out. You kind of break it down word for word on everything a person could think of, which also lends itself to the fact that you have experience in this, empirically experienced in the work that you do, and you can back it up. And we appreciate that.
I appreciate that as well. And they can purchase the book on my website. They can only purchase it on my website. I want to be clear. I'm a self-published author. So you can only get my book on my website. If you see my book on Amazon, that means it's being bootlegged. The only exception to that is occasionally there are Black bookstores who purchase my book in bulk and resell. So that would be Source of Knowledge Bookstore in Newark, New Jersey. They are authorized to sell my book, but currently Source of Knowledge Bookstore in Newark, New Jersey is the only Black bookstore that currently carries it. So if you're not purchasing from Source of Knowledge, you need to be purchasing from my website. Anyone else selling my book is bootlegging the book. And so they can get it at drumarjohnson.com, drumarjohnson, drumarjohnson.com. I also want the brothers and sisters in Kalamazoo to be aware that I will be speaking in Racine, Wisconsin for the first time, another Midwest debut on Saturday, April the 22nd. Now, I do understand Racine is a 3-hour drive from Kalamazoo, right around Lake Michigan. But for those who really want to get that information in person, I encourage them to carpool right around the Lake Michigan up to Racine. Interestingly enough, when you look at Kalamazoo on the map and you look at Racine, Wisconsin on the map, they're almost right across from each other. The river is what separates Racine from Kalamazoo. So if you was to get in the boat on the Kalamazoo side of Lake Michigan and go straight across, you'll be near Racine, Wisconsin. So that's pretty interesting. But I'll be in Racine on the 22nd, and that is also a free program as well. And that's just a 3-hour drive for those parents in Kalamazoo who missed me and really need to get that information. But I also want to say this, for parents who need consultation, they can schedule that with me by texting my cell phone. We can schedule either a telephone consultation or a virtual consultation if they prefer to do Zoom or FaceTime, or Facebook Messenger, or however they would like to get on a visual call with me. And my cell number is 215-989-9858. And feel free to give that out to your callers as well, Sister Angela, 215-989-9858. I ask parents to text me. I do not answer the phone. Calling me, you'll never get me, because I will not entertain a phone conversation until I've had a text conversation, because I get too many phone calls to just take random calls. So you have to text me, let me know who you are, where you are, and what it is you need. And we can go ahead and schedule the consultation. If your child was classified as intellectually disabled, formerly known as mental retardation, I do not charge a consultation fee to review the psychological evaluation report for so-called alleged intellectually disabled Black children. And the reason I don't charge for intellectual disability evaluation report reviews is too many Black children are being called retarded, and they are not. We have too many Black children walking around Michigan, walking around Ohio, walking around Wisconsin, walking around Minnesota, all throughout the Midwest, walking around Nebraska, whose parents were told that they were intellectually disabled, and they are not intellectually disabled. So one of the many free services I offer to the entire Black community is a free evaluation report review for any Black child in the United States of America who has been labeled as intellectually disabled, because we need to make sure that label is accurate. We do have intellectually disabled children. We do.
Yes.
But most of them who are walking around with that label are not intellectually disabled. They ended up with a low IQ score because of their low verbal comprehension ability. On the intelligence test, there is a section that is dedicated to a child's ability to verbally comprehend. Many of us would argue that it should not even be a part of the IQ test because verbal comprehension has nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with cultural familiarity. So why are you including cultural familiarity into an IQ test? It's to make sure the white children always outscore the Black children. That's why it's there. So again, Black parents whose children who have been labeled intellectually disabled, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me the evaluation, scan it, Dr. Umar Johnson at yahoo.com, and then text me with your name, location, and phone number and say, hey, my child was labeled intellectually disabled. Can you take a look at the report? This is my name. This is my phone number. And I will call you up. We'll schedule it, or I'll text you back, and we'll go over that report together. And if we find that your child may have been mislabeled, you're going to request an independent educational evaluation to have your child reassessed by an independent psychologist that the school district will pay for. That is your federal right, and it is called an independent educational evaluation. And I talk about this as well in the Black Parent Advocate book.
Indeed, you do. And we thank you so much for that. It is definitely a charge to you parents who are experiencing these labels, these misdiagnoses, if you will, because Michigan is also, and it's terrible. It ranked number 5 amongst the 8th grade math performance among our Black students. And this is as of 2022. We're ranked in the bottom 5. And we're the worst state in the nation when it comes to graduating Black males. And Dr. Umar, with that being said, let's talk about the graduation rate of Black males and this dream or desire for, us to follow this plan of go to school, go to college, get a job, provide for your family, that type of thing. College, we know, is not for everyone. So if you could speak to that whole scenario, that would be great.
Yes, we have to have a renaissance of industrial education in the Black community. We have to have a renaissance of industrial education. The mass incarceration of Black men began on the heels of the shutdown of industrial education in predominantly Black high schools. Mm-hmm. When Black boys were being taught how to fix cars, when they were being taught how to be plumbers, when they were being taught how to be carpenters, when they were being taught how to be electricians, the prison rates were not that high. Yes, they were still disproportionately Black, but they were not as critically high as they are now. Right. You can trace the growth or even the birth of the mass incarceration crisis. You can trace it to the industrial education crisis in America's predominantly Black high schools. In the 1970s, the United States government deliberately stripped the inner city Black high schools of the industrial building trades. They laid the foundation for mass incarceration that was to come. They deliberately stripped the inner city of the factory jobs and the industrial jobs. Why? Because when white flight took place, when white people started moving out of the inner cities in the 1940s, the government said, if we do not get rid of the jobs in the inner city, Black people will end up controlling the factory jobs, and they may even end up controlling the industrial building trades. So part of the creation of the ghetto, or should I say, part of the creation of the slum, was to make sure these predominantly Black neighborhoods would not have any relevant, viable economic opportunities. So they stripped us of the jobs, and they stripped us of the building trade programs in the high schools. And then they rolled in welfare, and then right after that, they rolled into crack.
Wow.
So the government created the black slum. The ghetto is a U.S. government creation. Black people did not create the slums. The ghetto was created by the government when they took all the factory jobs out and took all the industrial building trade programs out of the high school. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that the black community has not put enough pressure on our elected officials regarding has been the need for the return of the industrial building trades. We are not making the Congressional Black Caucus fight for it. We're not making our mayors fight for it. We definitely didn't make Obama do nothing about it. We didn't make Joe Biden do nothing about it. Bill Clinton didn't have to do nothing about it. There is no pressure being put on politicians to return the industrial building trade programs back to the black community. And they don't want to do it because as long as black men don't have the skills that pay bills, they will have to break the law to feed their family. And as long as they're breaking the law to feed their family, they're going to jail. And every black man who goes to jail, as far as the government and white society is concerned, is one less black man we have to worry about competing with. Because when you come out of prison with that stigma of having a felony on your record, that stigma of having been incarcerated, it's almost impossible for you to get your life back in order. Of course, there's brothers and sisters who do it, but it's not an easy road.
Right.
You can't get student loans. You can't get federal housing. You can't get medical care. You can't get food stamps. You can't get none of the things that a person needs to try to get your life back in order. They literally design the incarceration system to perpetuate recidivism. So you have to get locked up in order to take care of yourself. It's a wicked, evil system, and I don't think Black America is doing enough for our brothers and sisters behind bars. And I don't think we're doing enough to make sure more brothers and sisters don't end up behind bars. School-to-prison system is real. In fact, sometimes I say we shouldn't even call it a school-to-prison system. We should call it a school and prison system.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's impactful. School and prison system carries a whole lot of weight, and it definitely hits differently. So parents, we have to step up. We have to apply the pressure. Congressional Black Caucus, yeah, there's a political piece to it. I encourage all parents and caregivers of school-age children, and then those who are in college and can advocate for yourself, get out there, roll your sleeves up, and do something. Connect with people that can connect and get some things going. Especially with the Congressional Black Caucus, we need an overhaul. I'm sure we all can agree with that because too many of them are ready to, they're beyond aging out. They're just there, sitting and wasting time. So what can advocates do to create some change and apply pressure to these politicians who many times we only see them around election time at churches and big functions?
You have to organize. The two biggest weaknesses of Black America, which is why we still are where we are, is number one, disorganization. We are the most disorganized people in this country. We are not organized at all in any meaningful sense. Okay, we're only organized for religion. That's it. Black people are organized to pray, but they're not organized to change anything. And being organized for religion doesn't benefit us because religious communities do not fight for change on behalf of the greater Black community. They are very selfish. They only care about people who believe in Jesus or believe in Muhammad. If you're not within their religious circle, they could care less about what happens to you and your children. Although it's very hypocritical for someone who claims to be a servant of the Most High God to be selfish, that's exactly what churches are. Churches are some of the most selfish organizations in the Black community. If you do not pray as I do, if you do not have the same spiritual doctrine as I do, I don't care anything about you. That goes for the Muslims, that goes for the Christians, that goes for the Jehovah's Witnesses, it goes for the Hebrews, it goes for everybody. Black religions are some of the most selfish institutions in our community. But getting back to my point, disorganization. The most honorable Marcus Garvey said the greatest weapon used against Negroes is disorganization. Stokely Carmichael Kwame Ture said that If you're organized a little bit, you can get a little done. If you're organized a lot, you can get a lot done. If you're not organized at all, you can't get anything done. Malcolm X said, we're not outsmarted, we're out-organized. Everything goes through organization. So you might ask yourself, why is it so easy for Mexicans to organize? Why is it so easy for European Jews to do it? Mm-hmm. Why is it so easy for Chinese and East Indians and Native Americans to organize? It's because they never went through slavery. They never went through chattel slavery. Their psychological loyalty to one another was never disrupted and destroyed by the European power system. Mm-hmm. So Black people, although we've been out of chains for 157 years, it's not easy for us to come together and work together because for 400 years, our only interest was the interest of the slave master. So if the slave master didn't have a problem, we didn't have a problem. We only came together to benefit the white power structure. That is our training. That is our conditioning. That is our indoctrination. So fast forward 157 years to 2023, it's not natural for us to come together for our own best interest because that is not our history in this country. Our history is coming together only to benefit the white power structure. That's why we will come together to vote. It's easy for us to come together and vote for white people because that is our socialization in America. So in order for us to break that, we have to get very uncomfortable, and we have to get very uncomfortable being around each other for reasons that we all need to share in common, to improve the schools, to reduce incarceration, to build institutions, to fight for economic empowerment, to push back against police genocide, and to stop gentrification, which is swallowing up Black communities all across America. We have to come together, but Black people don't like each other. We hate being around other Black people. This is why the minute we get a little bit of money, most of us move into a white suburb. The minute a Black family gets a little bit of money, we are moving into a white suburb. We hate each other. Black people love to talk about how integrationists we are, but we're only integrationists with non-Blacks. Black people are only integrationists with non-Blacks. If you say integrate with your own people, we don't want to do that. We do not want to integrate with our own people. We don't send our kids to Black schools. We send them to white schools.
Wow.
We will pay $20,000 extra to say our child got a doctorate or a master's degree or a bachelor's degree from a white racist, predominantly white university instead of sending them to an HBCU.
Indeed.
We are very much about the upkeep and maintenance of the white power structure. We are not interested in building a Black world order because that's what we need. We need a Black order, a Black world order in every city, every state, every country in this world if we're going to survive the 21st century.
Indeed. And chattel slavery, yes, that is no longer, but there's still the systemic and psychological heavily. And a lot of parents, and we know, been in rooms where some of the other, back to the school system, some of the parents lifted up that there are barriers, structural, contextual, cultural, and even perceptual barriers that are obviously used against. And we want to talk about the importance of being empowered, using your voice. And the overall thing is not even to leave out the mental health and wellness concerns, which are, showing its head more and more. It's being recognized more and more, but we need to normalize the conversations around mental health as opposed to assessing and putting a child away, so to speak. And
then put them on medication. Because in America, the focus for Black mental health is either incarceration or medication. Treatment and therapy are not really the interests of the white mental health establishment. My doctorate is in clinical psychologist. I'm a former therapist, child therapist, family therapist, behavior specialist. I've done it all and I do it all. Mm-hmm. And when parents are looking for mental health treatment for themselves or their child, I always caution them. Get you someone who is interested in providing you with traditional psychotherapeutic treatment. Do not reach for the pills. And the whole mental health establishment is very racist and biased against Black people. They want to put us all on pills. And so now you're depressed and you're a drug addict. You're anxious and you're a drug addict. You're bipolar and you're a drug addict. You got anger problems and you're a drug addict. So you came looking for help to eliminate a problem, That problem remains because it's not being addressed, because pills do not solve problems. Let me say that again. Medication don't solve. Mental, psychiatric medication is different from biological medication. If you take some pills because you have, a bacterial infection, those pills might eliminate that bacterial infection, right? But if you're taking pills because you're depressed or anxious, those pills are not going to eliminate your anxiety or depression. The pill suppresses the symptoms. It doesn't eliminate the causes. So when you take psychiatric medication to deal with an emotional problem, you did not solve the emotional problem. You actually just picked up an additional problem, because sooner or later, since the pills don't solve your problem, you're going to become addicted. An addiction is going to develop for the Prozac, the Adderall, the Depakote, the Risperdal, the Cyclophosphamide, the Metadate. You got to get addicted, because the pill don't solve no problem. It only suppresses symptoms. So I want the Black community to stop falling for the pill trap. Don't go getting no pills to deal with your emotional problems. Get some psychotherapy.
Indeed, indeed. So, too often against the Black community, it's reduction and or prevention based. No, it's not prevention based. And we need to make sure that, like you said, get somebody who knows we can move beyond the medication, because we know medication and addiction, if that is not answered to, if they can't get to these medications, if they run out of money, then that could lead into all kinds of avenues of crime. And then what does that do? Put them right back into a system that they pointed them to in the third grade. Back in jail, back in incarceration.
Most states are underfunding mental health institutions, and they are overfunding prisons. What we have is a situation where a lot of people want real mental health treatment. They get locked up on purpose. Or medical treatment, they get locked up on purpose, because the only place where you're guaranteed to get mental health treatment or medical treatment is in prison. So you have homeless Black people going to jail on purpose, because it's the only way to get mental or medical treatment.
Sad. Very, very sad. So being reduction-based and not solution-based, bottom line is they don't want the cure, because it's lucrative. I should say that as well. It's lucrative.
Oh, absolutely. The money, $30 billion. The psychiatric medication industry is a $30 billion monster, and it's growing every single day. And they finance all of the major institutions that could make use of their product. They pay for the teacher conferences. They pay for the principal conferences. They donate to the school districts. They donate to the American Psychiatric Association, American Psychological Association. They lobby all the politicians. They donate to all the political campaigns. The psychiatric medication industry, that is one devil of a monster that Black America sooner or later is going to have to fight.
$30 billion industry.
Drugs.
That is scary, sad, disheartening.
And the biggest profit margin, Sister Angela, the biggest profit margin, because it takes a little bit of money to produce a pill. You're right. Imagine how much it costs to build a house before you can sell it. Imagine how much it costs to make a car before you can sell it. How much does it cost to make some shoes before you can sell it? How much does it cost to make an air conditioner or an automobile or a motorcycle or a computer or a cell phone before you sell it?
Pennies.
Pills are the cheapest things to make. They weigh less than an ounce, and they can make billions of pills. The greatest profit margin in the world of capitalism is medication. Nobody makes more money than the medical industry, because the product is so cheap to make, but the demand is so great.
It's so great. Oh my gosh. It's just, oh my gosh. Okay. I just went totally somewhere else where it'd probably take us a couple hours to get done. So I won't go there. But as we spoke to, and as you mentioned, and found out last Sunday, again, all of this information is in Dr. Umar's book, Toolbox Talk, that is actually going on right now, Dr. Umar. And this
Wow.
is...
And shout out to those brothers with the Toolbox Talk.
Yeah.
I was so impressed when they told me about that program of buying toolboxes for Black boys, because I tell you, Sister Angela, going right back to industrial education, going right back to it, industrial education is a solution for the obesity crisis in our community. It is a solution that will take our boys and girls away from social media, away from video gaming, away from cable television, away from the laptops, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram. It'll take them away, because there's something that children have always loved to do and always will love to do, and that is use their hands. Yes. Use their hands. If we want to get our children out the house, off the computer, off the television, off of social media, let's start some industrial training programs for elementary and middle school students. Of course, they can't use the heavy machinery. Right. Of course, they're not yet able, to really make use of electricity and some of the more intricate systems that you have to master to become a plumber or a carpenter. But we can get them involved in the basic stuff: how to screw, how to hammer, how to nail drive, understanding the different materials, the different types of tools, the different types, of equipment that you need. That will really get them out of the house. They would love to do that. They would absolutely love to be given a toolbox and start learning early about the science of industry and building. We need to get them into that.
Indeed, and move away from this feeling bad or feeling down about self if they haven't gone to college, right? Trade is definitely necessary. What they have, what they learn in their hands, they keep in their mind. No one can take that away from them.
Oh, absolutely. If I was in charge, every Black child in America would go to trade school before they go to college. Why? Because if you have a skill that can pay the bills, if you don't finish college, you're still going to be all right. Yes. Because in most college areas, you have to get a master's degree to really do anything with it. So you're looking at a 6-year commitment, and you're still not guaranteed a job. A lot of our children are not going to finish those 6 years. But if they have that electrician license, if they got that plumbing license, if they got that auto mechanic license, if they don't finish college, I'm okay with that, because I know that they can still open up their own business or go work for someone else's and make a decent life. We are not doing enough to resell the industrial building trades back to Black children.
That's good. Thank you so much. Hopefully, Dr. Umar, this was a recap. Everybody, they knew it. They knew it was coming. We can't have the hours it took to unpack all of this information. We wanted to hit the main nuggets, stuff that's hitting home right here in the Midwest, right here in Kalamazoo. And thank you so much for sharing. And in, say, 3 minutes, in closing, what do you have to share, Dr. Umar?
You mentioned earlier about the obstacles and barriers that Black parents face.
Yes.
With schools and mental health and all the various institutions in our community that are dominated by biased white folks. We have to understand that organization eliminates institutional bias. In other words, all those red tape that you got to go through, that only is as powerful as we are when we're disorganized. And so, in other words, if you're an individual mother, individual father, you're trying to navigate the school system, mental health, special ed, whatever the case, juvenile detention, juvenile justice, you're going to hit a lot of institutional barrier. But if we are organized, the more organized we are, the less those barriers will matter. That's why we need Black parents to come together and fight for the change as a group. We spend too much time fighting, Sister Angela, as individuals, and we get nowhere. Teamwork makes the dream work. Absolutely. We have to do it together.
Absolutely. One more thing you just brought back to mind, Dr. Umar, before you go. You mentioned the Black community and how, in relation to other communities, how they think about their culture first before any other title. Can you just paraphrase that a little bit?
Absolutely. We have to stop fighting. If you notice, we're the only people who don't fight as Black people. When Latinos fight, they fight as Latinos. Jews fight as Jews. Arabs fight as Arabs. Asians fight as Asians. Anglo-Saxons fight as Anglo-Saxons. What do Black people fight as? Minorities, people of color, disadvantaged communities. We're the only people who don't fight as who we are. we automatically join in with some racially ambiguous, all-inclusive term that includes all non-white people. And let us be clear, all non-white people can't stand black people. None of these minority groups who we're being clumped in with care about us, and none of them have a history of fighting for us. None of them do. Not one of these groups have ever fought for black people in a systemic fashion. So one of the things we have to do is do away with these racially ambiguous, all-inclusive political titles and go back to fighting as black people.
Wow. Thank you so very much for your time, your energy, your passion and conviction, and for educating and reminding us what we need to do. We see the problem. There's solutions given. There's contact information given. If you want to share that email to you one more time, Dr. Umar, feel free to go ahead and do that.
My email, DR, no period, just DRUMARJOHNSON, Dr. Umar Johnson at yahoo.com. They can also message me from drumarjohnson.com, or they can text me on my cell number, 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858. And please support the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy. Jump on your Cash App, $FDMG School, $FDMG School, or on your PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. And I want to see all of Kalamazoo in Wilmington, Delaware at the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy when we have our grand opening later this year.
Awesome. I do plan to be there. So thank you again. Have a good one. Continue to rest and enjoy the rest of your weekend, King.
Likewise, Queen. Be blessed.
As well. Thank you.